morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts, and welcome back to the Mayor's Table. My guest this morning is Mike Lewis. Mike is the airport manager for the city of Farmington at Four Corners Regional Airport. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see you this morning.
It's good to have you here. We've talked about the airport and the operations at the airport on a previous segment of the Mayor's Table, but I think it's time to bring the topic back and revisit it and inform our viewers about developments at the airport. We've actually had some pretty good news recently that Great Lakes Aviation provides regional air service to our airport, has expanded its flying schedule to some degree. Talk about that.
Yes, sir. The beginning of October, Great Lakes came in and increased the flight schedule to basically 3 flights a day to and from Denver, which is something we haven't seen in over a year here at Four Corners Regional Airport. The flights have operated on time, and through the end of October, they've yet to cancel a flight. So we're extremely pleased with the fact that they've chosen to fly into our market with this type of a schedule, as well as to perform as well as they have. That's fantastic performance from the airline perspective.
Well, frankly, we've been concerned over the last 2 to 3 years, and probably even longer back than that, but in the last 2 or 3 years, we've really been concerned about pilot shortage issues that Great Lakes has been experiencing and the impact of that pilot shortage on their scheduling, their ability to meet the schedule that they've established. And one of the problems that our flying public has is counting on that reliability. What do you think is happening at Great Lakes Aviation that would result in this decision to expand their schedule?
Well, Great Lakes has operated a lot of other cities in this region that are essential air service subsidy cities. In other words, they're paid by the government to fly into these markets. Farmington has always been an independent market and has, during most of their history, been profitable for the corporation. They've decided to stay with Farmington and to boost the traffic into Farmington in order to develop that market and keep that market. It is an essential part of their route structure, and they would really like to move forward with keeping aviation in Farmington and keeping it as part of their structure.
Now, you mentioned that our recent history in the context of reliability is that there were no flight cancellations for some period of time, and I'm not sure exactly what that period of time is, but every flight that was scheduled to fly actually flew.
That's correct.
Now that's a significant difference from our more immediate history where there have been significant rates of cancellation. What is enabling Great Lakes to maintain a schedule and fly in accordance with that schedule?
Well, a lot of it comes from the fact that their issues revolved around a shortage of pilots, and by consolidating their system and operating under some relief from the FAA on some of the regulations, they've been able to keep the pilot group up to speed to have enough pilots to operate the system as they scheduled it. So in recent history, they've been able to put enough pilots on the schedule to be able to not have a reliability issue.
And what's your guess as to the viability going forward of maintaining their flying schedule? Is there any reason to think that they will continue this very, very good short history of meeting their schedule?
Yeah, I think so. They're committed to the market, and they understand that performance is the key to the success of the market. They're going to put everything that they can as far as resources into making sure that they keep this as a viable market in their system.
The flying public makes decisions about flying out of particular locations probably based on 2 things primarily. One would be reliability. Will they actually take off when they're supposed to take off? Will they get to the destination when they're supposed to get to the destination? You've talked a little bit about that. We've got a little bit of a history now behind us where Great Lakes is batting 100%
with completion,
with completion. But the other component of that decision-making process on the part of the public is rate and fare.
Right.
And so what are the fares that are being charged for these flights to and from Denver?
Well, the fares are set at different rates depending upon whether it's a round trip or a one-way flight. They do offer flights as low as one way for $121 to Denver. There are lower fares that can be had through a combination of round-trip flights and the certain day that they fly, and the connecting flights that they choose also can help lower that cost between Farmington and Denver. As you mentioned about the recent activity of completing all of their flights, in addition to completing the flights, they've been able to maintain an 87% on time within 15 minutes. So 87% of the time you can count on getting to either Farmington or Denver within 15 minutes of your scheduled arrival, which is, considering the issues with the weather and traffic in Denver, is a pretty good number. Most airlines shoot for trying to reach 85% within 15 minutes. They've exceeded that by 2%. So they're really putting some effort into the market. I think they see it as a part of their viable future. And we're just happy to be on the receiving end of that type of effort that they're putting out for us.
Yeah, that's very encouraging news, and I think we've been looking for good news in some of these statistical databases. I think over the last 2, 3, 4 years, we've been seeing declining trends.
Right.
Fuel flowage charges, emplanements, cancellations. A lot of those demographics have been negative in context. One of the things that has remained relatively strong and stable has been general aviation.
That's correct.
And talk a little bit about that activity at the airport.
Well, over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, general aviation has sort of been on a slight decline. A lot of it had to do with the economy in the area and so forth. And recently, the general aviation activity has turned up, and it looks like by the end of this year we'll be back to the previous period as far as activity at the airport for annual flights. So it's coming back to where it was before.
Okay, and I understand, Mike, that Great Lakes Aviation is still flying their planes in a 9-seat configuration.
Correct.
And they do have an application pending with the FAA seeking a waiver from certain regulations that would enable them to fly in a 19-seat configuration. Do we have any information about the status of that pending application?
Basically, they're still waiting to hear back from the FAA. It's being considered. It takes them, I don't know exactly what the internal issues are within the FAA. However, Great Lakes is hoping that they, with this great performance that they have, will be able to take some data to the FAA and say, look, we're operating the aircraft with 9 seats. All we're asking is for you to allow us to put 10 seats back into the airplane. They feel that a history of great performance and demonstrating the capability to staff the flights would maybe help in this effort to gain this authorization from the FAA to put those 10 seats back in.
To be sure that we're fully informing our viewers about the scope of Great Lakes' flying schedule, do they offer flights to any other cities other than Denver?
Currently, they do have a flight that goes from Farmington to Page, Arizona, and that's to offer flights from Page to Phoenix. You can't fly from Farmington to Phoenix currently. It's 3 flights a day to Denver. 3 flights is a pretty good schedule for morning arrival and departure, because those are 3 round trips a day. Midday and an evening or afternoon flight that's a round trip that also allows for making good connections in Denver. Part of the traffic that goes on their flights are Farmington to Denver folks that get off the airplane in Denver. The remainder of them are connectors that go on throughout the world. So 3 flights a day is a pretty good schedule to help people accomplish the goals of whether they're going to go to Denver or to connect.
Well, what we've heard here this morning is good news, in my opinion. And we've been looking for some upbeat news for our flying public. And I think based on the reliability issue alone, we could, in good faith, encourage our flying public to seriously consider Great Lakes. Give Great Lakes a chance when you're making that plan for a trip to Denver and back. The cancellation numbers are extremely positive, and we're hopeful that they can be maintained going on into the future. The completion of flight numbers is very positive as well. So I want to just encourage our flying public to seriously consider giving Great Lakes that chance to demonstrate its customer service and reliability. Mike, we'll close this segment, but do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to personally thank you and the efforts that you've made. We've made trips to talk to Great Lakes. They understand that Farmington is very interested in having the very best service that we can from them. And I think your involvement in discussing these issues with Great Lakes has had a very positive impact on their decision to serve us.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. We want to give credit to our city manager, Rob Mays, as well. Rob is always involved with these issues regarding aviation in our community, and has done a nice job along with you in being a very strong advocate for that continuation of service. We recognize that air service in our community is essential in the context of economic development, and but we recognize that air service has evolved over time and will continue to evolve. So we're trying to survive in the context of having two other airports in our area that can serve our flying public. But thank you again for being here.
You're welcome.
I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning on the Mayor's Table. But before we close, I want to wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving. It's a very significant holiday in our American culture. It's a time for us to give thanks for our family and friends, and for all of the things that we have available to us in the community of Farmington, San Juan County, and Northwest New Mexico. Thanks again for being with us. We'll look forward to seeing you again next Monday.